It's like all the moon. That's exactly it. And when women get together in a situation, I'm sure that this has all happened to you when you're living with other women, you end up cycling with each other. The reason that was in our primordial situation when we were cave people, wandering through. I mean, the only thing that we had to worry about was protecting our own lives. I mean, there was no guns. I mean, women got together. That's the reason that women had more connections. I think the girls are going to love this for a start. The reason women probably get along much better with each other in groups than men do is that women actually have 30% more connections through the corpus callosum than what men did. Because it was part of an association of them bringing up children, looking after the cave or the fireplace, and the only thing that guys had to do, which is probably still what we do a lot these days, we just do it in finings, we just sharpened a stick and went out and stuck it in something and then brought it back. And the girls said, thanks guys, that was great. So, that, hence that situation as well. And obviously, with the Nautilus shell, you can actually try this as an experiment when you go home. As I said, every living creature is divisible by this number. If you take, which used to be a cubit, if you remember correctly, from the end of your elbow to the tip of your finger, from your elbow to your top of your shoulder, divide it. What number do you think you'll get? 1.6. Exactly. Top of your lip, to the middle, down to there, divide it. What number do you think you'll get? 1.65. From the edge of the eye, to this eye here, divide it together, what number will you get? It exists everywhere. It's in every living creature. It always has been. And hence, you can see obviously with the cycle of the moon and the egg, obviously it's women that do all that work. We sort of do what we do, of course, which is fun. But going back to that Nautilus shell. Now, and if you look at the sunflowers as well, I've got them down the bottom here. If you look at sunflowers, I mean, literally it's in everything. That pattern, that circular pattern, or the pattern, and what I've done is, as you can see here, from that line there where the DNA goes through to the sun, all the way over at the top, around, through the Vitruvian Man, and it comes back down. Can you see the line there? And what I've done here is I brought it back to the human skull. Now in the last 500 years, something's happening to us again. Over that 5 million year period, there were 5 things that happened to one bone in our skull. It's the reason that our neck moved under and we were able to stand up. Now once again, it's sort of going back to the dear father. If you were developing an eye, now everybody brings up the eye and how precise and technical it is, which it is. It's an amazing piece of equipment. We have a blind spot in our eye. Did you know that? Where the nerves connect the back of the retina, where the cones are. There's simply no cones there. So if you were designing a camera lens, would you put a blind spot in the middle of the camera lens? Would you do that? You wouldn't do that, would you? Part of that as well, that's the reason we get displaced facts. I mean, can anybody tell me what appendix are for? It's like, well, it does it now, but it did a long time ago when we ate huge amounts of vegetable matter, fibrous matter. It was part and parcel of actually digesting the fibrous matter as well, but we don't use it as much anymore, so we don't use it at all now. But what's happening these days is there's another thing starting to happen with our sphenoid bone. And that's the reason I've got the bone here in gold. And it's called flexion. And our sphenoid bone is starting to change shape again. We're actually starting to evolve again. This is the 6th time it's actually happened. And in saying that, there's evidence for that for a start, because in the last 500 years, children, and a lot of us, I'm sure that you've had it as well, are getting impacted molars. You know, hand up those guys who've had molars removed from the back there. There's a lot of it. And that's the reason for it, because our jawline is starting to change again. Apart from the fact that the races have interbred in many senses, so the pure aspect of each individual race has started to change because of that crossbreeding as well. But the fact is that our skull is starting to change shape again. With all the information that we've got going into our heads, simply, I mean, our brain doesn't use a lot of information anyway, it only uses about 7%. But once again, that's starting to change. So hence I've got that evolutionary base again, and as you can see, as it comes around, it winds back into the skull. Now over here, time, Isaac Newton, what's time? Time doesn't exist. Time is what we put on it as far as what we see on our sun every single day. Guess what? We're all atheists. Does anybody believe in the God Thor? Do you believe in this guy here at all? I mean, these are gods. I mean, there's been millions of them. I think there's about 1 million gods in India at the moment. These are things that, you know, as pack-forming animals, we've actually had to do to survive, because if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to get through the simple fact that there was dire wolves and saber-toothed tigers tracking us down. People say to me, what about morality? Where do we get that from? It comes from the Ten Commandments. And I said, well, no, that comes from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, because they have 12 commandments, and you can actually see where they've been plagiarised through the Old Testament. But even surmising that we've only been around for, say, 100,000 years, I had to say to myself, well, where does human morality come from? You know, is it from the Ten Commandments? I mean, literally, when Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the Ten Commandments, he comes down, and knowing that the Bible is basically based on astrotheology, he's actually come down from the mountain. What were they worshipping when he came down from the mountain? Golden calf. And that period of time was the time of Taurus. The next 2,000 years was the time of the ram. It's the reason the Jews play the ram song. The reason God had 2 fishes and 5 loaves is that Jesus was born into the sign of Pisces, the 2 fish. God's Son, S-U-N, fed his people into the sign of Pisces. So a lot of those things aren't particularly known to people as well, but in a sense time doesn't exist, doesn't start, doesn't finish, it just simply is. The Big Bang, we know now through light spectroscopy, if you look at galaxies, some of them are moving away faster than others. And on the scale, when you look at the light scale, e.g. Mr. Newton at the top here, when you look at that light scale, the faster that galaxy is moving away, the more to the red zone it is shifted. The slower the galaxy is moving away, the more to the blue zone it exists. So we know that the universe is expanding, and it's expanding a lot faster than we thought it was. The light that we're seeing now is 13.725 billion years old. And we can see that because of the simple fact that if you triangulate various galaxies and see the speed that they're moving away through that spectroscopy, you can actually work out, knowing the speed of light, how quickly they're moving away from us. So, hence, you can time it back, bring everything back into one spot, 13.725 billion years ago. That's when time started for us.